The Amazon never forgets. They warned me not to go alone. The Amazon rainforest doesn't need teeth or claws to kill you, they said. It only needs time. I laughed back then. I was a documentary sound engineer, sent to record rare nocturnal wildlife deep inside an uncharted stretch of forest. Near the Brazilian border, no tribes, no villages, just green on every map. Endless green. On the third night, the forest went silent. Not quiet, silent. No insects, no frogs, no distant howls. Even the wind stopped breathing. My recorder was still running when I heard footsteps. Slow. Bear, careful. I whispered, hello. The sound vanished before reaching the trees. Then the footsteps stopped. Right behind me, I spun around. Nothing. Only thick vines and shadows tangled like veins. But my recorder spiked violently as if something massive had exhaled inches from the mic. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I found footprints outside my tent. They were human, but wrong. Too long, toes stretched, bent outward like roots, and they didn't sink into the mud, they pressed upward, as if the ground had tried to reject them. That night, the forest whispered my name, not spoken, remembered. Daniel. It came from everywhere, from the trees, from the soil, from inside my skull. I ran. Branches tore my skin, roots grabbed my ankles. The darkness moved with me, adjusting, waiting. My flashlight flickered, and in that single stutter of light, I saw them. Figures standing between the trees, human-shaped, skin covered in moss and bark, faces frozen in expressions of terror. They were explorers, missionaries, soldiers, people who never left. I fell into a clearing where the air felt heavy, ancient. In the center stood a massive tree, its trunk twisted, pulsing slowly like a heart. And then I understood. The Amazon doesn't hunt, it remembers. Every scream, every bone, every breath stolen. I woke up days later at the edge of the forest, dehydrated, screaming, alone. Rescue team said I'd been missing for a week, but my recorder, it was still running. When I listened to the final file, there was no screaming, only my voice, calm, whispering, I'm staying. The path that walks in the Amazon. Everyone knows the Amazon changes people, but no one talks about how it moves. I was part of a satellite mapping crew, sent to verify a strange anomaly, a straight path cutting through hundreds of kilometers of dense rainforest. No road permits, no logging records, no explanation. From above, it looked like a scar. On the ground, it looked alive. The path was narrow, perfectly smooth, and unnaturally clean. No leaves, no insects, no roots breaking through. The jungle stopped at its edges, as if afraid to cross. Our guide refused to step onto it. This path is not for feet, he whispered. It is for leaving. We laughed. We stepped on it anyway. After an hour of walking, my GPS began looping. The coordinates repeated, even though the sun clearly moved. Trees around us started to feel familiar, not similar. The same broken branch, the same twisted vine, again and again. Time stretched thin. That's when we heard breathing, deep, slow, patient. It didn't come from behind or ahead. It came from beneath the path. One by one, my team began disappearing. No screams, no struggle, just the sound of footsteps stopping. When I turned back, the path behind me was gone, replaced by thick forest, as if it had never existed. But ahead, the path widened, pulsing gently like muscle. I tried to step off. The forest pushed me back. Branches bent inward. Roots rose from the soil, forming walls. The jungle wasn't protecting me. It was guiding me. At the end of the path stood a clearing with stones arranged in a spiral. In the center was a pit so dark, it swallowed light. The breathing grew louder. Then the path spoke, not in words but memories. I saw the Amazon before humans, then humans arriving, burning, taking each footprint carved guilt into the land. The path wasn't a road, it was a digestive tract, a way for the forest to process what harms it. I felt hands beneath my feet, countless hands lifting, aligning me perfectly at the edge. I screamed. The forest inhaled. I woke up days later in a hospital, found wandering naked along a riverbank. They said my team was never found. They said the path doesn't exist. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I feel the ground beneath me breathing. And I know the Amazon is still hungry. The trees that count. In the Amazon, nothing grows randomly. That was the first thing my professor told me before sending me to document tree ring samples deep inside a protected zone. The forest keeps records, he said, longer than humans. I didn't understand what he meant until the counting started. Every evening, just as the sun collapsed behind the canopy, I heard it. 1, 2, 3, not voices, not echoes. It was the sound of wood cracking softly, like fingers bending coming from different directions. The numbers never repeated, never skipped. Always slow, always patient. By the fourth night, my team refused to leave the tents after sunset. By the fifth, there were only 3 of us left. We found the first body at dawn. Miguel was standing upright between 2 massive kapok trees. No wounds, no blood. His face was calm, but his chest had been split open from the inside, ribs forced outward like broken branches. Inside him was a sapling, fresh, green, growing. We tried to evacuate. The forest closed. Paths we had marked were gone. Rivers bent the wrong way. Our compasses spun wildly, then stopped working entirely, as if direction itself had been revoked. That night, the counting came closer. 27, 28, 29. I realized something horrifying. It wasn't counting trees. It was counting us. At 32, the forest went quiet again. My remaining teammate, Clara, clutched her recorder and whispered, "What happens when it finishes?" The answer arrived immediately. 33. The trees leaned, not fell, leaned toward us. Roots tore free from the soil, dragging entire trunks inch by inch. Bark split open, revealing shapes inside human outlines, pressed into the wood like fossils mid-scream. The Amazon wasn't killing us. It was archiving us. Clara ran. The forest chose her first. Vines pierced her legs, lifting her screaming body into the air. Her cries were swallowed as bark folded around her, sealing her inside a living trunk. The counting resumed. 34. I dropped my equipment and ran blindly until I collapsed into a shallow ravine. I stayed unmoving, breath held, body shaking until morning. When rescue teams found me days later, they said no such research team had ever been approved. No permits, no records. They called it exposure, psychosis, but they didn't see my arm, where thin lines had begun to form beneath the skin. Circles, rings, like a tree learning how old I am. And every night, when the forest dreams, it continues counting. The river that returns you. The Amazon River doesn't flow the same way everywhere. I learned that after we pulled a man out of the water who had been dead for 3 days yet was still breathing. His skin was pale green, eyes open, lungs filling and emptying like the river itself. When he coughed, water poured out, but he didn't drown. He whispered one sentence before collapsing. It brought me back. I was a medic stationed at a remote river outpost. People disappear in the Amazon all the time. Loggers, smugglers, researchers. Sometimes the river gives something back. Usually, it's bones. This time, it was wrong. That night, the river changed its sound. Not louder, closer. It began breathing against the shore. Small waves pulling in and out with unnatural rhythm, like a chest rising and falling. At midnight, I heard footsteps in the water. Someone was walking upstream. I aimed my torch at the river and froze. Figures were rising from beneath the surface, dozens of them, men, women, children. Their bodies were bloated and pale, eyes clouded, mouths opening and closing as if practicing words they had forgotten. They didn't crawl onto land. They waited. At dawn, one stepped forward. It was the man we rescued. He smiled. "I remembered how to come back," he said. "But the river remembers us better." He touched my arm, cold, heavy, wet. Suddenly, I wasn't standing at the outpost anymore. I was underwater, but I could breathe. I saw the riverbed below covered in shapes, half buried in silt. People, thousands of them, their bodies intertwined with roots and stones, faces frozen in the moment they realized death wasn't the end. The river wasn't a passage, it was a library. Every life it took was cataloged, preserved, replayed. I ripped my arm free and stumbled back onto land, screaming. When I looked again, the figures were gone. The river flowed normally. Command evacuated the outpost within hours. They blamed toxic algae, hallucinations, mass hysteria. But I know the truth. Sometimes, at night, when rivers flood villages and forests vanish beneath water, it's not the Amazon expanding, it's the dead going home. And one day, the river will remember me too.